Welcome to the Your Business Untethered podcast, a space for freedom seekers ready to build and scale a business that supports their wildest dreams, even while traveling the world. Hi, I'm Dina, creator of Way of the Founder and your host. I imagine this podcast as a space where aspiring and established freedom entrepreneurs come to forge a path towards purpose, financial freedom, meaningful impact, and location independence. I'll be your guide as we defy the norm, heal old conditioning, and step into the leaders we were born to be. I myself am a firstborn, a daughter of divorcee, sister, girlfriend, professional coach, nomad, and expat of a decade plus, as well as yoga aficionado and energy healer. In my previous career, however, I worked a 9-to-5 as a professional fundraiser for American orchestras. Can you believe it? However, I needed more. I needed more freedom in my life. So 5 years ago, I called quits on resume success and claimed back the reins over my own life. What started with a one-way ticket to Vietnam and a single backpack filled to the brim has since grown into Way of the Founder, where I've helped hundreds of clients defy and heal from the path that we're told to follow, redefine freedom, fulfillment, and success on their own terms, and build impact-driven businesses that let them live and work from anywhere. Join me each week for deep dives into leadership, strategy, and mindset, as well as the healing that fuel the untethered CEO. That's you. Whether you're building your dream with a coconut flight ticket, wine glass, or coffee in hand, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode here at Your Business Untethered. I'm excited and thrilled to have my very first guest on the show, Roxy, who will talk today about our brand and specifically about the importance of color. She talks about confidence, colors, and this is a topic that I know almost nothing about. So I'm really honored for you, Roxy, to be here and to share your knowledge and your expertise with us. Roxy, you help nonprofits and entrepreneurs take control of their branding so that their passion can be seen and become headline worthy. Hence the name of your own brand name, I believe, Hearts2Headline. I'm thrilled that we both have a background in nonprofits. I wonder if this will come up. But for now, Roxy, welcome to the podcast. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do and why this matters to the world.
Yeah, it's so great to be here and to be talking to you. And Hearts2Headlines, exactly in the name. That's what makes it easy to remember. It's taking all that passion, all that drive, all that heart that you have for your business and turning that into headline-worthy material, because often people just breeze over the branding element. They say, you know what, I'll come back to this. Or like, I could just get some clip art and call that a logo and that's my day. But the thing is, in today's world, our attention span the average attention span is 8.25 seconds. There used to be a joke that said, oh, your attention's shorter than a goldfish. And people would be like, oh my gosh, that's so funny, 9 seconds. Now it's true. We do have shorter attention spans than a goldfish, that's saying something, right?
Terrifying.
And it really is. But that's how much time you have on social media, at a sponsor event, in person, when you're talking to someone, to hook them, to connect with them, to create that feeling that they want to work with you, to learn more, to dive in, to become a client, whatever it might be. So working within that world of what I call emotional marketing. It's the feelings. It's how we feel about a brand we want to work on. It's not the statistics. It's not the reputation. It's how we feel about the brand we want to work with. And as a healer yourself, I'm sure you know all about the synergistics of how we feel when we interact with something. So it's so fascinating to me to see how that works in so many different ways when you bring it into branding.
Yeah, absolutely. What I always tell my clients is that our audience doesn't buy with their brain. They don't need, like you said, a bunch of statistics and a bunch of numbers. We all buy with our hearts. We justify the purchase with our brains, and that's what we need the data and the statistics for. But at the end of the day, it's very much a heart-to-heart decision. And I believe our brand is a beautiful vehicle to sort of foster that trust and that connection to our message and to the purpose as to why we exist as a business.
Absolutely.
So I'd love for you to share a little bit about What is a brand? Let's start with brand 101. What is it? Is it just the colors or is there more to it?
That's an excellent question to kick off on. Well, because a brand is what I like to say is a first impression. So, especially for entrepreneurs and nonprofits, when we're trying to make a connection with the people who see our brand comes through in our first impression. What colors do we use? What font do we use? Is it accessible? Can people see it the way it's intended to be seen, the way it's intended to be experienced? And if it's not, we're missing our target audience or people that may have color blindness or some sort of visual deficiency, but we are losing that connection, that feeling to our brand. And a lot of times people think a brand is just a pretty logo or slapping a picture on that explains everything your business does in one visual or too many words, but it's about a teasing. It's a first impression that teases what someone's going to learn when they step into your world and they experience everything that you have so much heart for and that you want to share with them. So that's when you bring it all the way down to what branding is, it's that emotional connection of you putting your brand first, putting your brand's identity out there, creating something that's real, and then sharing that with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you put this. Our brand is sort of the first introduction that we get to give to, our potential clients, our existing audience, right? And I think there's also an element of brand recognition in there, right? You sort of, with an attention span shorter than what was it, fish?
Yeah, 8.25 seconds.
8.25 seconds, we have to build a brand that allows us to reintroduce ourselves to even our existing audience to continue to capture and recapture their attention. So obviously you talk a lot about colors, and I want to get into the theory of colors and what it means to lead with confidence colors in just a minute. But if you would just sort of share the fundamental elements of a brand, like when people listening or being tasked with the big project, let's build a brand, what goes into that? And it's a lot, right? It's not just the color, but I believe the color is sort of the thing that in this visual world that we live in drives everything. It's sort of the vehicle to get your message across. But what are the things, what are the elements that people have to sort of check off a list when they're building a brand?
Yeah, you said that perfectly. I mean, the color, what we see, is what often drives the brand. It's what pulls people in. It has a lot to do with that first impression. But a brand in its entirety is what you put in your brand guidelines. Another thing that many people like to skip just because it's work. It's, we'll figure it out. Our colors are close enough. Like, we know our brand guidelines, but your brand guidelines situate you in your brand mission statement, vision statement, who your target audience is, what fonts do you use, what buzzwords do you use, and all of this creates a identity and a story that you're trying to share. Because what I like to tell my clients is you are not your brand. Your brand has its own thought, it has its own mind, so you need to speak like your brand, not yourself when you're communicating with people, especially when you come across in email or Instagram on social media. How we talk, our brand has its own brand identity versus how we would talk to our friends.
I love that. I love it so much because it also allows you to show up on days when you feel like shit, right? It's like, oh, I'll just slip into my brand voice. And that doesn't mean that you have to be completely removed and detached from it. But it's such a beautiful little snippet for a mindset shift to sort of go, I'm creating a brand and that gets to live as this persona outside myself. And then for those of us who have really big dreams, that's also laying the foundation to, a few years from now, perhaps exit the company and sell it because you've built a brand that truly is a brand that gets to live and breathe and build a community thanks to you and through you, but not necessarily one that's reliant on you. So I love how you put this. Let's dive into color. What role do colors, and specifically, as I believe you talk about it, confidence colors play in creating a headline-worthy brand?
Yes, I could talk about colors all day long. This is something I'm truly passionate about. Just to give a little background, I know you talk about moving outside of your 9 to 5 and finding your entrepreneurial spirit and journey. I still have a 9 to 5, and my 9 to 5 is in the world of New York City advertising. I'm an art director in which I am that person who helps pick the colors behind a lot of the logos you interact with every day that are household names that you experience at the grocery store. And the thing is, all of these giant brands use the psychology of color to influence our purchasing decisions. And here's a perfect example. If you walk into a McDonald's and you say, I do not need a side of fries, I'm good, I'm just going to get my burger, I do not need those fries. McDonald's intentionally uses the colors red and yellow to stimulate hunger. I know, I see your face. I know no one else sees your face right now, but it stimulates desire. And that's why a lot of people will then buy that side of fries.
Oh my God. I'm going to walk in with a blindfold the next time I go to McDonald's.
And this concept is true in every purchasing decision across the board. Even when we get down to the cleaning products in a grocery store, there's certain colors that you'll see more than any other colors because of the way it makes you feel. They want you to feel safe, organic, clean, all these things that you don't think about with highly chemically filled products. So this is all intentional. So I said, well, if this is true in brands, why can't we do this for ourselves? So I created this idea of confidence colors because it's the color you can be confident in knowing that you are positively influencing those around you. And I'm going to break that down for a minute because I just said a lot. It's the color that you wear that you know psychologically it influences the person you're talking to. So if you're interviewing and you want to get the job and you need that little bit of push, you wear blue. And that interviewer doesn't know this. This is all happening subconsciously. But that interviewer might say, wow, Dina, I really trust you. I feel this sense of connection with you. Why is that? It's because you wear blue. Every color is associated with an emotion. If we can own that color, then we can influence how people feel. My confidence color is always orange because that is the color for enthusiasm, creativity, spontaneity. And for me, I want people to be excited about what I'm talking about. When I talk about colors, I get so excited. So I want other people to also feel excited. So we can pick the color that helps influence how we want people to feel. And then that helps us network. It helps us interview. It helps us get our point across. I can see
I have so
you're
many
thinking about your
questions. I
entire
don't know where to
wardrobe.
begin. I am. It's right behind me. Okay. So I'm trying to sort of step through this logically because my brain just exploded with a bajillion questions about this. Because now I'm seeing like an array of applications, not just in my business, but when I go on a date with my boyfriend and when I go home to see my mom, and it's a very.
This gets applied across every industry. I talked to a dating coach recently, and she said, I'm always trying to tell my clients the little black dress is dead. You have to wear color, and it has to be strategically placed based on your physical attributes. Like there is a strategy for using color theory in the dating world. I talked to a painter who said, well, when I go into restaurants, they suggest certain colors to make you feel cozy, homey, so that you stay longer, that you spend more money at the restaurant, you order another glass of wine. This is all intent. Like, I know this blows people's mind. Like everything you do now is going to be with a blindfold on because you are constantly influenced by color.
But we also get to apply this to our own brands, to our own businesses. So again, my intention is to sort of start at the very beginning of this.
Mm-hmm.
How do we, does this just come from, psychological studies being done for us to be able to determine nowadays, oh, orange means that you're joyful and that you're passionate about the thing that you talk about? And, secondary question, does every color on every person evoke the same emotions? And if you can spin it even further, do all colors mean the same, or do all colors equate to the same emotions across all industries, or is there nuance?
Great question. And I think the key is that last thing you said is that we can apply color differently per industry. So like I said, when we look at cleaning products, a lot of times they use the color yellow because that's the color for brightness, clarity, freshness, organic. What's the scent that they typically put in cleaning products? Lemon. Why isn't it chocolate? Why isn't it pizza? Why isn't it something where like, yeah, I love that cleaning product because it smells like pizza? No, they use lemon because yellow is associated with cleanliness. And then if we apply that into the food world, like I was saying about McDonald's that uses red and yellow, yellow is organic. So we want to think about our highly processed hamburger as being as organic and fresh and clean as possible. Doesn't mean it is, but that's what we think when we see the colors. So yes, it depends on the industry, but each color is associated with an emotion across the line. How we apply that can change. Also, not to make it more complicated, the hue of the color, the lighter or darker that color is, the different the meaning is. So a light green is about tranquility, whereas a dark green is about safety. So they're similar in a sense. You can think of tranquility and safety together, but the darker the color, the more grounded we are, the more foundational, established, and the lighter we are, the more fresh idea, thought-provoking, trustful, truthful, all these lighter feelings are associated with lighter colors. So once you find your color in that mix, you can also accent it with other colors. Like I know your viewers can't see, but I'm wearing blue glasses and an orange shirt. So I always pair my orange with a hint of blue. And you don't like my earrings have orange and yellow in it. Like I use all of these accessories to drive that emotional connection. Even when it comes down to nail polish color or the bow tie you wear or the hair accessory you wear, this all influences how people feel. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but psychologically we know that people are judging you based on color. It just, we can't help it. It's how we react to everything around us. And so if we can harness that power, think about how powerful you become in the networking world, in the communication space, as an entrepreneur trying to push your ideas forward to connect with people. And we can do that just by the colors we wear.
Okay, so let's talk actionable steps. And I want to talk sort of into two directions. One being, which colors should we be wearing when, as you said, we promote our brand, we show up as the founder of our business at networking events, even to, I assume, podcast interviews, right? And then I want to talk about how to apply the power of colors to our actual online brand. So let's talk networking first. I actually have a conference coming up in just a couple of days. So maybe I need to go shopping. Who knows? But yeah, I think my question is sort of implied. How can I become intentional about which colors I put on? Because also not everybody looks good in every color, right? I used to have platinum blonde hair and therefore I never wore yellow. Now maybe with my natural hair color, right? But how can I sort of curate a wardrobe that helps me convey who I naturally am and helps the purpose of whichever meeting I'm going into?
Right. Well, the number one rule, and I'm so sorry because you're wearing a pattern. The number one rule is patterns are not good for business. And the reason being is you have a lot of colors going on and you have a lot of textures and designs going on. And what that does to our brain is it computes as a puzzle. It's something we have to solve. So now I'm distracted by the pattern on your shirt. I don't know I'm distracted, but subconsciously I'm distracted trying to figure out what's going on. If I'm talking to someone and I'm explaining my business and what it is that I do, I don't want them to say, I wonder what's going on that shirt. What is that pattern? What kind of fabric is that? No, I want someone to hear the words that I am saying. I want them to remember my mission, my name, all of this stuff. So we wear solid colors so that they're influenced, but they're not confused, or they're not, what's the word? They're not distracted. They're influenced, but they're not distracted. And then We can also, you don't have to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. You probably have your confidence color in your closet already. And ChatGPT is pretty good at determining that. You can use any AI program and just say, hey, I want people to feel safe and like they can trust me when I'm at a conference. What color should I be wearing? It'll tell you. I find it to be very accurate. It'll tell you. Or you can ask me and I'll tell you. But you can use these resources to say, I want to be that one person in the room that represents blank. What color should I wear? And that's the color. I recently gave this talk to a room of entrepreneurs and I returned the following month to another event. Every single person that was at that event that I spoke at was wearing a confidence color at the next meeting. And they were all different. That's the best part because people are looking to create different connections, whether it's a safe space, it's an authoritative space, it's a flirty space, whatever your industry is, you apply a different color. So you don't have to worry about everyone showing up in blue just because they want you to feel trustworthy. We can find our unique color and stand out in that sense.
Wow, fascinating. So just sort of to ask a clarifying question, a confidence color isn't necessarily the color that makes me most confident. It's the color that best represents my intention, my honest and true and loving intention.
Exactly. I always say I'd rather dress with intention than to be fashionable. I do not claim to be a fashionista. I do not know anything more than the other person when it comes to fashion, but I know the influence of color. And so even if orange isn't the best looking color on me, it doesn't matter because it's influencing people in a positive way. So back to your question about like if you have blonde hair and you don't like wearing yellow, well, then you might have to rethink what your tone is. Think about what you want your intentions to be or what you want people to think. Maybe fresh ideas isn't the vibe you're going for, but maybe it's something more like a pink, something that's slightly flirty but fun and juvenile and outgoing. And then you go for that vibe. And then that's how you talk to people with that intention of being that pink energy.
Love it. Love it. And you did name one of the colors that I very much enjoy wearing, which is pink. It's all over my place. Wardrobe, closet, inside my own brand, my bathroom. Anyway, moving on from pink. Let's look at our online brand. Most people listening to the show are either already the owners of an online business or they're about to become an owner of an online business. Which type of colors, how do I decide which colors to pick and choose to represent my brand online? And does it suffice to have just one color or do I need maybe 2 or 3 or 10?
Great question. I mean, I always suggest having your primary color, 1 to 2 secondary colors, and maybe a tertiary, which is just like a very, very light or very, very dark color as a contrast. Because the other thing that I focus a lot on is accessibility. And that's a big concern in the digital space. Is oftentimes we'll create these beautiful websites and use our brand colors, and then we forget the accessible element, that if people are visiting our content but they can't read it the way it's intended to be read, or they have some sort of visual impairment, then they're not experiencing the intended result. So I have a lot of concerns around accessibility, and there are so many ways on the internet to test it. WhoCanUse.com will test all your color contrasts for you, but finding that color for your brand that represents the emotion you want to get, how do you support that? Is your secondary color something that is in that same realm, in that same feeling, or is it a completely contrasting color? You can combine something like a very light sky blue, which is calming and therapeutic and tranquil, with a bright, brilliant orange, which is, we talked about, is enthusiastic and creative. And when you put that together, it kind of meets somewhere in the middle and you say like, hey, I'm excited, but I'm approachable. I am someone you want to talk to. How can we find these colors and create these very unique conversations almost just by visually how people interact with your brand? Because they're not talking to you the first time they see your brand. They're seeing your logo. They're seeing a flyer you created. They see a postcard, a sticker, and all of those incorporate your brand colors. So we have to pick them very intentionally. And we have to make sure that you can read the font on it. You can understand what's in your logo, what's in your art. That's the accessible side of all of this. So there are a lot of checkers online that can help you kind of piecemeal this together. And of course, I'll throw the plug in there that you can always work with me and I'll tell you which colors are best for your brand. But it does depend on the industry. It depends on the tone, your brand identity and your brand tone, and then what you want the outcome to be. Do you want them to buy? Do you want them to follow? Do you want them to share your content? There's so many different call to actions as well that we can accomplish with color.
I'm getting a little hyper excited over here because you're just supporting and reinforcing a point that I make on pretty much every single piece of my content inside and outside my paid containers. And that is, you have to know what your purpose statement is, what your business is there for, why it matters, and of course, who it's there for, right? And that takes a minute to figure out. And it's okay to let that process take 3, 4, 5 months of tweaking and figuring out and trying something on, and then taking that code of your first purpose statement draft off and putting on a new one until you really land on something that can be both a litmus test and a guideline for every single decision that you make in your business thereafter. Half the time when clients come to me, I don't know what I should do. Should I do this offer or that offer? I'm like, which one fits in with your purpose statement? Well, this. I'm like, great. Why doesn't this fit in with your purpose statement? Well, A, B, and C. Exactly. You don't need me, right? You need your purpose statement is the absolute foundation. So hear me when I say this. You can't even pick out your colors for your brand if you aren't clear on what you're here to do, which problems you're here to solve, who you want to solve them for, and why this matters.
100%. I mean, that is part of the foundation of a successful brand. You can build upon that once you know your purpose, your drive, where your heart is coming from. And then you build up and you build out and you can make a real difference.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions, but since you mentioned working with you, I actually want to anchor in on that. Well, it's not a two-part question, but you can kind of look at it from one way or the other. How do you work with clients? How do you help people bring the right colors into their business to help support the mission and the goals of their business? The other way of asking the question would just be, what are the steps that, if I'm just starting out with building out the visual aspect of my brand, what are the steps I should be taking myself through in order to get it right?
Absolutely. Well, I am a branding specialist, and what I do a lot of is brand evaluations. So there's 2 ways to go about that. Either you are starting out and you want to build the right foundation, and if you go on to hearts2headlines.com, I have a course that teaches you not only color, but there's a psychology of type. There's a psychology of shapes, not to blow your mind. There's responsive design with our logos, how to create that foundation we were talking about, how to really base yourself in a brand that is stable. So I always suggest when you're starting out, go over there. But if you're a brand that is reflecting and is saying, shoot, maybe I need to readdress some of these things in my branding, I also do deep dive brand evaluations where I find every corner of the internet that you're on and make sure that there's consistency across your brand, consistency in color, in communication tone, in branding, in logos, and all of these things. Because how many times did we post something on Instagram and then you forget to check it later, or you forget that it's even up there, or you post on some random website and you didn't even know that there's an article that's still circulating, that's still driving to your website, but it has a completely different message because that was 5 years ago. And we change. Our brands change with trends, with what's current, what's acceptable, what's accessible, because now we have so much more access and understanding of accessibility in the digital space that we didn't have 5 years ago. All the way back to that attention span. We have to work faster with the 8.25 seconds we have to make a connection. So how do you make that connection faster? How do you do it more effectively? And that's all stuff that I teach in my course or that I work with my clients on knowing. But then again, I would say you can also go on my website where there's a lot of resources, free resources and checklists of how the heck are you going to start? Where do you start? How do you know all of this stuff? And I love color. I will share that. I will scream that from the rooftops. I will share that with anyone who listens, because that alone can have such an impact on how you connect with the world and how you teach them about your business.
I love that. Fascinating. When you first begin to build a business, you have a plate full of things to do. And more often than not, new entrepreneurs don't actually know how to prioritize all of the things that need to get done. I need to get on Instagram. I need to start my YouTube channel. I have to pick my colors. I have to figure out what my messaging is, X, Y, and Z, right? So where, in your opinion, and of course, you're someone who absolutely stands in for brand is so important, where do you believe a new entrepreneur should put all of the tasks having to do with the visual brand on their plate, on their list of priorities when they're just starting out?
Well, I like to say if you can get your branding down solid, then you just leave it alone and you know it does its job. And then you can focus on all that other stuff that's on your plate that never goes away. But you need that branding foundation. So I would always suggest that you go out and you look at your competition. What does their visual identity look like? What is their logo? What is their colors? What are they doing that you noticed that brought you in? And then do the opposite, which is I would almost say controversial, right? Because you're all in the same field, you're all doing the same thing. But if you're in a competitive space of everyone using the color green because you're into farming, go use pink. See what happens. See how many people are like, there's a farm brand that uses pink. And then if you know what the emotion is connected to, if you're leaning into that emotional aspect and utilizing that for your brand, and you stand out against all those other brands using the same style, the same colors, then all of a sudden it makes it a lot easier for you to be noticed.
In other words, our brand should be one of the very first priorities that we tackle. This is not for seasoned business owners who are already making 6 and 7 figures in their business. This is part of the foundation.
Absolutely. But you can always refresh, right? I said a lot of times it's an afterthought. People look at their brands and they say, shoot, I missed something. I missed the mark, or I didn't know that color theory existed, right? And that's not to say like you're doomed at this point and you have to try something else. You can refresh your brand, because if we look in the history of like any brand, World Wildlife Foundation, Girl Scouts of America, all of these brands over the years have gone through so many transitions, changed their colors, changed their logos, depends on the year. I think Eventbrite just changed their entire branding, colors, logos, everything. We are constantly updating in the sense of household names. So what makes your brand any different? If you feel like it's time to do a refresh to show that you are expanding, that you are growing, that you are changing, that's a good thing, because it makes people notice. It shows that you are staying consistent with the times, with what's successful right now.
Okay, so a lot of people's ears and eyes in this case just perked up, mine included, and we all realize we have some things to do. So if you had to break it down to just the 2 most important things, what are 2 action steps that we can all take away from this episode and take within the next, let's call it within the next 7 days or so?
I would check that your logo is responsive, number 1. And I know we didn't even touch on this, but I think this is so important. And you can look up what is a responsive logo. Basically, does it fit in a square, a rectangle, and a circle? Circle is usually social media. What is our profile picture? A rectangle is on the top of a letterhead. When we don't have a lot of vertical space, how's your logo going to look? Is it going to shrink up to the point where you can't read what it says? Does your logo fit there? Does your logo fit in a square? That's usually your standard format. And it's okay. This is what people don't know. It's okay to have 2 different logo formats to utilize in different spaces so that people are experiencing it the way you intend for them to experience it. If they can't read it, then they're not going to know who you are. So we want to make sure we're utilizing space appropriately on every platform. So look at your logo. Is it responsive? And then look at your colors. Do the colors you use reflect your mission? Do they reflect your end goal?
I love that. I love that very much. So before I ask you to plug away and share how we can all find you and stay in touch with you, I have one question that I ask every single one of my guests. you being the first of every single one of my guests. And that is, being someone who at Way of the Founder works with established and wannabe freedom entrepreneurs, people who really want to claim back agency over their life and build a business that provides them with financial freedom, freedom of time, and choice. My question to you is, what does freedom or entrepreneurial success and freedom mean to you?
I love that. Freedom to me is waking up in the morning and know that I have a mission. I have a plan for today to make the world a better place, even if it's by one call, one podcast interview, but whatever I am doing to get my knowledge out there is the freedom that I need to know that I am being seen, I am being heard, that I'm sharing and contributing to the world. That makes me feel free, that I can share my knowledge freely, that I can show up authentically and be present.
That's why you also work in nonprofits, because you are clearly someone who gets out of bed because you're driven by a mission. I find that incredibly inspiring, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your wisdom and your passion with us. This is definitely a topic that I thought about maybe for a couple of hours, and now I do think I have beautiful colors. I must say, I personally enjoy my own brand, but I will go back and run them through some of the action steps that you've just shared with us to make sure that my brand really does communicate the messages that I wanted to be communicating. So how can we all stay in touch with you? How can we continue to learn from you and connect with you after this?
Absolutely. Well, you can find me all over the place at Hearts2Headlines.com. On Instagram is the main place that I update at Hearts2Headlines. It's a catchy name, so I'm sure you'll all remember it in one sense or another, but if you're interested in setting up a consultation, we can review your colors right then and there and decide what are your next steps. What is the next step in your branding journey? Let's do that together, because we are all in the same boat here. We are all entrepreneurs trying to make a difference, trying to get our word out there, and we have to help each other. We are all in this together. So set up a call with me if you want to review your colors and see how you can be more impactful with your brand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Roxy. I really enjoyed this conversation. I bet that everybody got a lot of action steps, a lot of shit and aha moments out of this. And to everyone listening, make sure that you give Roxy a follow, a subscription, reach out to her if and when you need support. She is definitely the person to go to. And until then, thank you again for listening, and I hope you create more freedom than you did yesterday. Have a beautiful rest of your day. All right. Thank you for listening to the podcast, Your Business Untethered, hosted by me, Dina, creator of Way of the Founder. I love hearing from you, so please drop me a DM on Instagram sharing your insights from this episode. And if you are ready to take the leap, my free guide to plot your 9-to-5 escape in 7 days and the Freedom Business Scorecard are in the show notes for you to grab. If this episode created change for you, please leave a review and be a friend and share this with a friend or colleague that you love. Until next time, please wake every day, seize the day, defy the norm, and create your very own type of freedom. I love you. I do mean it.